Sophie, a homeless woman, had been living on the streets for years after filing for bankruptcy. After losing most of her family, she was unable to get any help. But still, Sophie was a proud woman, and she refused to beg for the help of strangers. However, she didn't mind aiding others, so when Tom, a banker, was ambushed by thugs, Sophie put a stop to it. After receiving her help, Tom was willing to give her whatever she wanted. He turned pale at her request. He surely hadn't seen this coming. He had expected her to ask for a large sum of money or something very expensive, but this had caught him off guard. Are you sure about that?" he asked. Sophie nodded, and she seemed like she had already made up her mind. Tom felt his eyes prickling as they filled with tears. He couldn't believe this. When Tom shared the day's events with his wife, her response took him by surprise. A proposal to repay Sophie in an unconventional manner, one that seemed utterly preposterous given Sophie's actions. "This is not right, not after what she did," she argued with conviction. United in their decision, they crafted an alternative plan, a gesture of recompense shrouded in mystery. The following day, Tom approached Sophie with an offer cloaked in secrecy. "Will you come with me? I have a surprise for you," sparking intrigue about the nature of this unforeseen gesture. What had Sophie requested that so profoundly shocked Tom and his wife? And what was their plan for an alternative repayment? This setup promises a story filled with suspense and curiosity, inviting readers to delve deeper into the unfolding drama, eager to uncover the shocking request and the unexpected path of restitution that lay ahead. Tom was walking home from work when it happened. People always asked him, "Why don't you take the car?" But he preferred walking. It was a good way to get some fresh air and move his body after sitting an entire day, which was very important to him, especially at this age. He was one of the oldest employees at the bank, but he did not want to retire yet. That seemed way too boring to him. However, he was not working as many hours as he used to anymore. Some days, he left work in the early afternoon, just like he had that one day. It was a sunny autumn day, and the streets were crowded and noisy. Tom enjoyed his walk home, which took about half an hour, and he liked people watching while doing so. Unfortunately, this did not mean that he was very aware of his surroundings. As he walked through a quiet, empty street, just a block away from the busy and chaotic city center, he was suddenly ambushed. Some thugs had followed him from the moment he left the bank, and they had waited for a good moment to carry out their plan. They surrounded him and demanded he give them access to the bank's vault, and they threatened to hurt him if he didn't do what they asked. "You don't understand. I don't even have access to the vault. I don't have the code," Tom exclaimed, terrified and confused at what was happening to him. The men didn't believe him, though, and they thought he was just trying to escape. At that point, one of the thugs pulled out a gun and swayed it around, threatening to shoot Tom if he didn't give them the code. Tom was just about to cry out that he did not even have the code, but then he heard another voice coming from behind him. "Get away from him! Leave that man alone!" A woman called out to the thugs. They stopped, confused, not understanding what she was doing. "Keep your distance, lady, or I'll shoot you too," one of them exclaimed. However, that woman was not going to take his shit. "Listen here, you little bandit. You wouldn't survive in prison for one day, and believe me, I can know. Get out of here before the police arrive, or you'll regret it," she told them, waving around a fist. She might not have seemed dangerous at first sight, but the rage in her eyes and the fury in her voice were enough to make it clear that she was not someone to be messed with. Tom just stood there, unsure of whether he should run or stay, while the thugs muttered to themselves, "Shit, what should we do now?" They had not anticipated an older lady interrupting their robbery. Moments later, they heard the sound of police sirens, and they ran into a back street, disappearing just as quickly as they had shown up. Tom stared at them, with his mouth open for a few seconds, before realizing that he should thank the woman. You saved my life. I don't know how to thank you," he said. She told him, "You're welcome," and she turned around to walk away. "Wait, where are you going?" Tom asked. She shrugged and that was the first time Tom got a good look at the woman, and he realized that she was homeless. "What is your name?" he asked. "Sophie." Right then, before Tom could ask her anything else, 2 police cars pulled up next to him, and a few officers quickly got out of the cars. "Sir, are you okay? Are you hurt?" they asked Tom. He explained that everything was fine, and no, he was not hurt. A brave and fearless woman had saved him. He turned around to point to Sophie and give her the credit she deserved, but she was nowhere to be found. Tom did not really want to press charges, but he did so just for the sake of the bank. Those guys wanted the code to the vault, and since Tom hadn't given it to them, they might try to get it from one of his colleagues. So he joined the police at the station to give a statement. However, his main goal wasn't to catch those men, it was to find Sophie. He still hadn't thanked her properly. So, after everything was done at the police station, he returned to the crime scene. He took a turn off the main street and found himself in that same calm and quiet street as earlier that afternoon. But he couldn't find a trace of Sophie. He walked around for a while. And finally, he found her, a few streets away. "Sophie, there you are. I came back to look for you." She looked up at him and smiled, saying, "Sorry I just disappeared on you like that. I've been avoiding the police lately." He smiled back and told her, "I just had to find you again. I will never forget what you did for me." Sophie saw his eyes filled with tears and waved it off, saying, "Oh, it's not a big deal. I've dealt with worse situations out here." Tom sat down next to her, and they just talked for a while. Tom told her about his family and his job, and Sophie, in turn, shared the story about how she became homeless and told him about what it was like to live on the streets. After nearly 2 hours, Tom realized that he was getting hungry, and he offered to buy them some lunch, but Sophie declined. It was clear that she did not like accepting help, but Tom was not going to give up so easily. "Sophie, I get it. I get that you don't like others to feel bad for you or even help you. But what you just did for me back there, you were the only one who dared to even come close to those bastards. You must understand that I have to repay you one way or another. You saved my life, after all. Please tell me what it is that you want, and I will make sure you get it." "Anything." Sophie looked away from him, and it seemed like she was thinking about it. Tom was happy that she didn't immediately tell him no, which meant that she was at least considering it. He was determined to give her whatever she asked. He assumed it would be money or something very expensive, though, since she knew he was a banker. However, what she asked for was something he never expected. Upon hearing what she wanted, Tom asked her, "Are you sure that's what you want?" Sophie nodded, determined, and not wanting to change her request. Tom replied that he would make it happen, and he would come find her at this same spot the next day. He quickly got up and left, turning away from her to hide his tears. He couldn't believe what she was asking him for. Tom finally went home after a chaotic day, and during dinner he told his wife, Mary, about everything that had happened. He hadn't called her to tell her earlier, because he didn't want her to worry, and he preferred telling stories in real life than over the phone anyway. She was a little angry at him for not telling her what had happened immediately, but she agreed that they needed to do something special to thank Sophie. Tom swirled the contents of his cup, reflecting on Sophie's kindness. "She's been there for us in ways we never expected," he began. Mary nodded in agreement. "Yes, and we need to find the right way to thank her." They sat down with a piece of paper, jotting down ideas. Every option felt either too small or too extravagant. They wanted to find the middle ground, a gesture that would show their immense gratitude without overwhelming Sophie. Tom proposed getting Sophie a thoughtful piece of jewelry. Mary, remembering Sophie's simplicity, felt she might appreciate something more practical. Maybe something she really needs, Mary pondered aloud. Tom nodded. But it's important not to make it seem like charity. They mulled over books, outings, and even holiday packages, trying to balance between heartfelt appreciation and Sophie's potential reservations. The two were caught in a dilemma. They felt the weight of their gratitude, but were also cautious about overstepping. We don't want her to feel obligated or uncomfortable, Mary voiced. Tom agreed, rubbing his temples. But we also can't just let her kindness go unnoticed. Determination settled in. Gratitude, they decided, wasn't just about expressing thanks, but making sure the person felt valued. After much reflection, an idea began to form. Tom and Mary envisioned a day dedicated entirely to Sophie, a day she would always remember. They'd begin with a morning surprise, followed by activities Sophie loved. A visit to a local art exhibit, a spa day, then an intimate dinner at their home. To conclude, a special gift is waiting for her, a plan that they felt was perfect for someone as wonderful as Sophie. With a blueprint in hand, they began preparations. Mary took care of the spa bookings and chose a heartfelt card. Tom organized the art exhibit visit and planned a special meal for the evening. Every detail was meticulously looked after. The air was filled with anticipation. As night fell, they looked at each other, excitement evident in their eyes. Tomorrow was the day to make Sophie feel as cherished as she made them feel. With dawn breaking, Tom approached Sophie, the weight of gratitude heavy on his chest. "I remember what you asked for, Sophie. How about that shower?" he asked gently, a sincere smile gracing his features. Sophie looked up, taken aback by the offer coming to fruition. The world had taught her that promises were often empty words, yet here was one kept. She hesitated, her gaze darting between the ground and Tom's earnest eyes. Trust, once lost, was hard to regain, but there was sincerity in Tom's voice, a depth of gratitude that couldn't be feigned. "All right," she murmured, almost inaudibly, taking a deep breath. She decided to place her trust one more time, hoping it would not be misplaced. Together, they walked side by side toward the facility. The sun cast long shadows, and birds heralded the morning with their cheerful tunes. The short journey was filled with silence, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Both were lost in their thoughts, contemplating the moments that had brought them to this point. Each step felt like a stride towards hope and new beginnings. As they walked, Tom found himself reflecting on the privileges he'd taken for granted. The warm water, a fresh towel, the scent of soap. Simple luxuries, yet for some they remained distant dreams. Sophie, on her part, thought about the many times she had yearned for such basics. The longing for the feeling of water trickling down, washing away the grime and weariness. The building loomed closer, and a surge of anticipation bubbled within Sophie. The thought of feeling clean, of water cascading over her, was a balm to her weary soul. She could almost feel the droplets, the sensation of soap lathering, and the freshness that awaited. Tom glanced at her, sensing her excitement, and smiled. Today, a simple act would bring immense joy. As they approached the building, Sophie noticed they weren't headed towards the expected showers. The sign ahead was clearly not one for a facility with showers. Instead, it shimmered in gold and blue. Tom could sense Sophie's confusion, but decided to keep the suspense a bit longer. The surprise he had planned needed the perfect moment. They stood before a lavish hair salon, the windows displaying stylish haircuts and transformations. Tom turned to Sophie, his eyes shining with mischief and joy. "How about a new look to go with that shower?" he offered, hoping to catch her completely off guard. It was his way of providing her with more than just the essentials, a chance at transformation and rejuvenation. The world seemed to whirl around Sophie. The salon, Tom's gesture, the possibility of looking and feeling different. It was overwhelming. Tears brimmed in her eyes, a blend of gratitude and surprise. This is too much," she whispered, her voice catching. But behind her initial reluctance was a glimmer of hope, a desire to embrace this unexpected kindness. Taking a deep breath, Sophie approached the salon's entrance. Each step was a testament to her courage and the trust she was placing in Tom's intentions. The scent of shampoos and conditioners filled the air, and the gentle hum of hair dryers was audible. She hesitated at the door, but with a nod from Tom, she stepped into a world she hadn't been a part of in so long. The staff greeted Sophie warmly, sensing the significance of the moment. As she sat down, allowing herself to be draped in a salon cape, she realized this was about more than just hair. It was about healing, trust, and new beginnings. Every snip, every touch, was a testament to Tom's genuine care for her. And as she looked into the mirror, Sophie saw not just a transformation of her appearance, but of her spirit too. The atmosphere in the salon was electric. The buzz of conversations, combined with the aroma of hair products, created an ambience that was both foreign and invigorating to Sophie. She felt like a fish out of water amidst the salon's regular clientele, but there was also an undercurrent of excitement. This was a place of transformation, and Sophie was at its heart today. As Sophie took her seat, she was greeted by a warm and familiar smile. The hairdresser was none other than Lucy, a close friend of Mary. Recognizing Sophie from stories shared by Mary, Lucy approached her with extra tenderness. "We're going to make sure you leave feeling wonderful," she promised, her voice reassuring. At that moment, Sophie felt she was in good hands. Lucy worked her magic. Gently, she snipped away the damaged ends of Sophie's hair, washing away the weight of the past with a soothing shampoo. Sophie relaxed into the chair, letting the warmth of the water and the gentle massage transport her. As Lucy styled her hair, Sophie's transformation became evident. Each brushstroke was a step towards a new beginning. When Lucy spun the chair around, Sophie was met with a reflection she hadn't seen in years. The woman looked back at her radiated confidence, her newly styled hair framing her face beautifully. The sparkle in her eyes, however, was what stood out the most. It was the look of someone who had been given a chance to start anew, to redefine her narrative. As the final touches were added, Sophie felt a rush of gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered to Lucy, her voice thick with emotion. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken feelings. Lucy hugged her tightly, knowing the depth of the journey Sophie was on. As Sophie stepped out of the salon, she wasn't just leaving behind a hairdresser's chair, but also a cocoon, emerging renewed and ready for the world. The sun was beginning to set as Tom and Sophie approached a beautifully maintained apartment complex. With a playful smile, Tom turned to Sophie. "I hope you're ready for another surprise." Sophie, feeling both excited and overwhelmed, nodded hesitantly. The building before them seemed to hold many stories, and she wondered what role it would play in her unfolding tale. Inside, they took the elevator up to the 3rd floor. With each passing floor, the anticipation built up within Sophie. The soft hum of the elevator seemed to play a rhythm to her heartbeat. As the doors opened to a well-lit corridor, Tom led the way, and Sophie could hardly keep her curiosity at bay. Each door they passed seemed to whisper secrets of its own. Stopping in front of apartment 307, Tom knocked gently. The door opened to reveal a beaming Mary. Without hesitation, she pulled Sophie into a heartfelt embrace, a gesture that melted away any remnants of apprehension. The apartment was filled with the soft glow of evening light, casting a warm hue over everything and making the atmosphere feel even more inviting. As they pulled apart, there was an immediate sense of recognition between Mary and Sophie, despite this being their first meeting. The stories Tom had shared created an unseen bond between them. With a mix of warmth, laughter, and a few tears, they chatted away, finding comfort in each other's company. It was as if their souls had known each other for lifetimes. After a while, Mary stood up with a twinkle in her eye. "I believe there was a promise of a shower," she said, leading the way. Sophie's eyes lit up with gratitude. She had almost forgotten her original request amidst all the surprises. Following Mary, she stepped into a pristine bathroom. The promise of a warm shower, a simple yet profound luxury, awaited her. With the comforting aroma of the apartment surrounding them, Tom and Mary took a moment to look deeply into Sophie's eyes. Their expressions conveyed a magnitude of gratitude that words alone couldn't capture. "We just wanted to say thank you, from the bottom of our hearts," Mary whispered, voice quivering. Tom nodded in agreement. Sophie was overcome with emotion, feeling a depth of appreciation she had never experienced before. Seated comfortably in the living room, the atmosphere grew light and jovial. Tom started with a funny anecdote from their college days, leading to a cascade of stories. Sophie chimed in with her own tales, some touching, some hilarious. Laughter echoed through the apartment, filling every nook and cranny with warmth and familiarity. The conversation steered towards the extraordinary day Sophie and Tom had experienced. They recounted each twist and turn, with Sophie adding her own perspectives. Mary listened intently, occasionally interjecting with tales of her own adventures with Tom from their earlier days. The stories seamlessly wove the past and present together, creating a tapestry of memories and shared experiences. As the evening deepened, Mary brought out a delicate tea set. The soft aroma of chamomile and mint wafted through the room. They settled into deeper conversations, discussing dreams, aspirations, and the unexpected turns of life. The tea acted as a soothing balm, making the evening even more intimate and reflective. Though it was just one evening, the connection between the trio was palpable. Sophie felt as if she had known Tom and Mary for ages. The walls she had built over the years seemed to crumble effortlessly in their company. The gratitude, the shared stories, and the genuine concern they showed her made her feel cherished. The bond they formed was unmistakable and promised many more shared moments in the future. The sound of water cascading from the showerhead filled the room. Sophie stepped under its flow, letting the warm droplets cascade over her. Each drop seemed to wash away the burdens she'd been carrying, cleansing her soul and rejuvenating her spirit. It wasn't just water. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss, a pause from the world outside. As she lathered her hair, the scent of the shampoo made her close her eyes in delight. The sensation of soft foam on her skin and the warm water enveloping her was therapeutic. Sophie realized how often such basic joys are overlooked. A smile formed on her lips, realizing how something as elementary as a shower could transform her mood entirely. Toweling off and donning fresh clothes, Sophie felt as though she was shedding an old self and emerging anew. When she rejoined Tom and Mary in the living room, there was a newfound sparkle in her eyes, a radiance that emanated from within. The weight of her past seemed to lift, if only for a little while, replaced by hope and the warmth of newfound friendships. The evening continued with a lightness in the air. They shared stories of their favorite memories, dreams they were chasing, and the random musings of life. Every word spoken, every laugh shared, reinforced the bond they were forming. As the hours rolled by, the room was filled with an aura of contentment and gratitude. As the clock chimed, signaling the late hour, Sophie hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I can't thank you enough for today," she began, her voice thick with emotion. "But I think it's time for me to go." Tom and Mary exchanged glances, sensing the depth of her words, but respecting her wishes all the same. With her bag slung over her shoulder, Sophie took a deep breath, absorbing the room's comfort and warmth one last time. Her heart was filled with gratitude, but the weight of her journey pulled at her. She turned to Tom and Mary, her eyes searching for words that would adequately convey her thankfulness. "Today, this day, it's been more than I could have ever imagined," she murmured, trying to keep her emotions in check. As she moved towards the door, she paused and looked back at the living space. "Your home," she started, choosing her words carefully. "It's more than just walls and furniture. It has a warmth, a soul." Her gaze lingered on the couch, the kitchen, and the hallway, appreciating the lived-in feel of the place. "It's felt like home, even if just for a day," she confessed. Mary glanced at Tom, her eyes twinkling with a mischief that hadn't been there before. Tom nodded subtly, taking a deep breath as though readying himself. "Sophie," he began, "there's something else we haven't told you." Mary moved closer, joining her husband in solidarity, their hands intertwined. The atmosphere in the room shifted palpably, charged with anticipation. Seeing her puzzled expression, Mary stepped in. "This apartment, Sophie, it isn't ours," Tom added quickly, seeing the confusion deepen in her eyes. "We wanted to give you more than just a day of comfort. We wanted to give you a new start." Mary squeezed his hand, taking over. "This is your home now, if you'd like it to be." Sophie's heart raced. Her eyes darted between the couple, trying to decipher the truth from their faces. Could it be? The possibility seemed too grand, too improbable. She blinked rapidly, fighting the tears that threatened to spill. Words escaped her as she grappled with the magnitude of their gesture. Could she really call this place her own? The enormity of it all left her utterly overwhelmed. The silence was almost palpable as Tom took a step forward. "Sophie," he began gently, "this isn't a temporary gesture. This apartment, it's yours if you'll have it." The keys jingled softly as he extended them toward her, the metallic shine glistening under the soft light. "We wanted you to have a place you could truly call home." Every muscle in Sophie's face seemed to twitch with a myriad of emotions. Disbelief was the first to surface, followed by a wash of overwhelming gratitude that welled up in her eyes. Her hand rose to her mouth as if to stifle a cry, or maybe just to ground herself in this surreal moment. The air was thick with unspoken feelings as Mary reached out, her hand finding Sophie's, squeezing reassuringly. Clearing his throat, Tom ventured, "There's more, Sophie. It's not just about the apartment." He hesitated, choosing his words. "I'd like to offer you a position at the bank I work at. It's an entry-level role, but it's a start." The weight of the offer hung heavily, not as an obligation but as a lifeline, a genuine opportunity for Sophie to rebuild her life. Mary chimed in, her voice is soft yet firm. "We believe in you, Sophie. Everyone deserves a chance to start over, to carve out a path for themselves." She smiled gently, her gaze unwavering. "This is your chance, a stepping stone to a brighter future." The room was charged with hope, the undeniable promise that with support and determination, Sophie could reshape her destiny. As the evening shadows deepened, the apartment seemed to glow with an ethereal light. It wasn't just about bricks and mortar anymore. It was about hope, trust, and the unwavering belief in human kindness. For Sophie, the world that had once seemed so bleak and unforgiving now held the shimmer of possibility. And as she clutched the keys, the emblem of her new beginning, she felt a strength she hadn't known in years.